pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time is our public input on agenda and non-agenda items. I welcome any members of the audience to speak at this time. Okay, then we'll have Mr. Carmelo come up and do the budget discussion.
Thank you. So it's that time of year. It's Epicel's favorite time. Not a ton of detailed Troy information tonight. Right? This is going to be the general introduction to our budget development process. And we'll get full into it really starting next time. We start them all with the Troy mission statement that will provide a strong educational and social foundation to graduate all our students college and career ready. I say it every time, but it's important to always start with this because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do that every single day in all the classrooms and all the things that we're doing. And the budget statement, the budget that we put together is to make that statement a reality. So we have that in the forefront of all of our decisions, but especially around budget time, because that's what we're doing as we're making our decisions, and you are making your decisions. We continue to be proud of all that's happening throughout the district, every classroom and every building. There's so many great things going on. We're still feeling the effects of the pandemic. I don't write that to say things aren't back to normal. Operationally, they really pretty much are back to normal. But we're still feeling the effects. Come on in, Mr. Cartwright. We were waiting for you. You can go back front.
You're mean.
I'm not good but we're still feeling the effects in the sense that our kids had a real tough time over the last 2+ years, 3 years now. Our adults have had tough times, right? There's some learning gaps, there's some academic shortfalls right now that we're working through. There's some real mental health issues for some of our students and some of our adults that we're working through. So when I say we're still feeling the effects, that's really what I mean. Opening day, we talked about reset, re-energize, and refocus, and I think we've done that. We've done a great job of that as a district. But those effects are real and they're there, and we're seeing them every day. So as we're developing our budget, we're also keeping in mind the things that we are putting in place and have put in place to help with that. We're committed to doing what's necessary to build on all our successes and ensure we meet the needs of all of our students. And we're going to develop a budget that will allow us to do that. Budget development process, the budget calendar. We approved that on December 21st of last year, this school year. We are going to make a slight adjustment to that. The governor was, you'll see later in the slide, the governor was a little bit later than usual putting her budget out. So that came out today, like this afternoon. So Adam and I just started looking at that, maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock. We got to look at the state aid runs that she proposed and those kind of things. So that bumped it back. And there's a lot going on at the state level with the foundation aid, which we'll talk about a little bit today, with the federal money that you know about, that we have one more year on, and we're going to start making our plans to get ourselves off of that. So next meeting, February 15th, Adam and I were talking, we're not going to do draft 1 until March 1st, but next meeting we'll get a little bit more into what it's going to look like moving forward over the next 3, 4, 5 years, and have a discussion with all of you, like what we think is the best way to go about it, and then do draft 1 on March 1st. I don't think we need to reapprove it. That was just an internal thing anyway, but just so all of you know, that's how it will work. We do have a Citizens Advisory Committee. They couldn't make it tonight, but it'll be two of the same as last year. And then we have one new one. Thank you, Dr. Ford, School 16, got one of his parents. So they'll all be here starting on the 15th they'll sit with Adam before that meeting like they do and get a little budgeting 101, Troy budgeting 101, and then they'll be ready to roll at that meeting. Program review, data-driven decisions. Budget is a full year process. I say that every time too. We're always looking at our budget, and you look at it by reviewing all the programs, what things are working, what things aren't working, what things are working really well, what things could be better. All of our decisions we make in the district are based on data. Remember, that was a goal that we had, a district goal that we had for 5 or 6 years, and it was really needed then, and we've done a full overhaul, and now it's just become part of what we do, and we do it for all things. And so that's going on always. Last 2 weeks we had our budget meetings with the principals and the department heads. Those are the ones in the trenches doing the work, and so we meet with them when we start this process. They tell us the things that the students could use to make things better, right? It's almost like you review everything, tell us what you need, and they have a lot of things, and they're actually very grateful for all that they have now. And so the requests weren't as plentiful as they are some years. We will put them as a cabinet in tier 1, 2, and 3 like we always do, and we'll share those with the board as we move along in this process. And again, I said there, year-round process, a comprehensive and thorough analysis of everything that's going on always. And, Adam's department's doing that, but we're doing that throughout the district by, again, reviewing all the things that are happening and making sure we're getting our bang for our buck all the time. And if not, we'll make changes. These 2 lenses are always there, but always I feel like need to be there so everybody gets reminded. There's 2 different lenses that you're looking at when you're making a budget, not just a school budget, but all budgets, right? Educationally sound, like what do our students need? If there was no fiscal responsibility needed, we could have class sizes of 8. We could have social workers in every classroom. There's things that we know our kids need, but you're constrained by the other lens as well. So it's educationally sound. What do our students need to be successful? That's the mission statement we just talked about. That's all the staffing and programs, all the things we've added. I just mentioned social workers. We have more than one in every building right now. The co-teachers that we've added to help with the instruction to really get targeted and individualized attention for our students in our nice small classrooms that we've kept. The supports that are needed, right? Not every student learns at the same pace or at the same level. And so there are supports that are available that we have throughout our district. Really proud of all that we do for our kids to help them all be successful. And so that the academic achievement, so kids can reach their full potential and achieve the level of success that they deserve. At the same time, we do have to be fiscally responsible, and something that we're really proud of, how well we've done that. We've been really good stewards, I think, of the taxpayers' money. You'll see some examples of it today and again into the process. Mindful of our overburdened taxpayers, we continue always to search for other funding sources. Talking about the social workers that we added, there was a grant that came out that was a mental health grant. So even though we have all those social workers that we've added over the last few years, we did go, Ms. Curry and Dr. Watson, we got that grant. And so now we have someone in the district who's focused on community partnerships and real just mental health things for our students. So always looking for those other sources to supplement the things that we have in place. We've been under the tax cap for the last 11 years. You'll see that in the slide again throughout this process tonight. It'll start. The last 6 years, it's been a 5% total increase. And so over 6 years, our levy has only gone up a total of 5%. Really proud of that. At the same time, able to add all the things we have. Part of that is because of all that federal money that we got, and that's what I was just talking about. Next time we'll talk about that a little bit, the things we've added, but also our plans for moving forward when that money is not around. And then leading to that is the long-term financial strategic planning that we have been doing and will continue to do. So balancing those 2 lenses, being fiscally responsible. It's really kind of easy the last couple of years to be fiscally responsible. Last year we went out at zero. I think the last 2 years we've been out at zero because we're getting the appropriate money from the state and the federal government. I'll go through this really quickly because you've already seen this in the state assessment report, but just going back to the educationally sound, like where do our students need to be successful, what's going on academically. So that was the 7 years of consistent, sustained growth in both ELA and math, right? Then we didn't have tests for a couple of years because of the pandemic, and then we compared the 2022 results. It wasn't a full comparison, right? It was a different test, and it was a gap of 3 years, so it wasn't, sometimes it wasn't the same kids that were even taking it. If you were in 5th, you were now in 8th and 7th and 10th and that kind of thing. That was the post-pandemic of the state, right? So the state, again, they acknowledge you can't really compare. That's 2022 from 2019. They went up a little bit in ELA and down 8 in math. And I showed that when we were doing these, when Dr. Watson and I were doing these state assessment presentations, just so you can see that we had similar, but ours were better than that. But it was not just even in New York State. These are the NAEP exams, which are a national exam, and they were down in both ELA and math, comparing 2019 to 22, right? And that's the effect of the pandemic, that's the effect of not being in school, it's the effect of all the mental health things and all those things that are going on, the learning loss and others. Our results, so there's our 2019. We did go up in ELA in 2022, so that sustained growth is still there. We did go down in math, but a much smaller amount than both the national average and the state results. So we never want to be down, and we'll fix that. I've started my data meetings back up that we kind of didn't have during the pandemic, and meeting with the principals and talking about their things. And we have, again, great things going on in all the classrooms. And our principals are really confident that we'll go back to getting that positive trend again in our 3 through 8 assessments. Always also want to brag about our graduation rates. Steady from mid to high 80s and even hit 90 in the class of 2020, and we're looking to keep that going. And comparing to our subgroups and to similar districts there. Again, something you've seen already, but just we're talking about educationally sound. This is what it is. That's educationally sound. So we're proud of the results. How do we sustain that progress and build on those successes? How do we ensure we're meeting the needs of all of our students? How do we maintain our environment of continuous improvement? Always trying to get better in what we do. Always trying to reach more and more kids. Always trying to help them be as successful as they can. And how do we do it in the most fiscally responsible way possible? For us, it's about state aid. Right? You've heard me talk about that for 11 years now. For a while, we complained about being underfunded in our foundation aid. High needs, low wealth districts like ours are so much more dependent on state aid than our high wealth, low need neighbors. For us, it's almost, we calculated it today real quickly, so it's approximately, 3 years ago when that slide was up, it said 60% of our revenues come from state aid. We are now, it's actually over 70, it's a little bit over 70% of our revenues coming from state aid. Right? So crucial, critically important that that state aid comes through. When there's cuts in state aid, and again, you've heard me talk about it over and over and over again, with our cuts in state aid, that hurts the Troy School District much more than it hurts in this unit as the Bethlehem School. Right? And that's the reason our revenues come from it. We don't have the tax base that some of those schools have. The foundation aid has been the key to our financial well-being over the last couple of years. The state is currently in year 2 of the promised 3-year full phase-in. We were looking for a full phase-in of the foundation aid, again, for the last 10 years. We had advocacy letters that we used to send to our legislators. Adam and I would go down every year and show them that we're 11 million underfunded now. Think of what we can do with 11 million. So, and we weren't the only ones, obviously. And so that Foundation Aid formula, the promise was to fully fund it, phase it in over 3 years, and we are approaching year 3, so we are confident and hopeful that that continues. I said already the governor just released it this afternoon, and we'll begin to review and analyze that. The key is going to be what I just talked about, the priorities that have been set. So these are NISCUS, which is school superintendents, NISBO, which you know is the school board, ASBO is the school business officials, and then the Educational Conference Board is all of those groups, plus small cities and a few other groups. The Educational Conference Board encompasses a lot of different groups. They don't have the exact same priorities, but I read all of their, their priority papers, and they pretty much agreed on, there was probably 12 or 13 in each one, but they pretty much agreed on these, and these are the ones that are key for us, so I wanted to highlight them. It's not the complete list. The number one priority for all the groups was what I just said: complete the phase-in of the foundation. The governor seems to be on board. In our quick look today, she's doing that. She is going to do year 3 of that full phase-in. So that's really good news for us and a lot of other districts. They also are going to review the Foundation Aid formula. That's excuse me, these are the priorities. I'm not saying they're going to do that. She has said she's going to do the first one. The other priority is the people are asking for a review of the Foundation Aid formula. Here's it's not a problem. I was going to say here's the problem. It's not really a problem because we're getting our Foundation Aid. Once we get fully phased in, which will be next year now, and that's what the next board presentation will be about, the school districts that are at full funding, they've gotten, over the last few years, anywhere from 1% to 2 to 3%. We can't survive if, once we're fully funded, the increases are going to be 1 or 2%. Right? Again, the way we depend on state aid, the way our tax base and the formula is calculated, that won't be enough money to even cover our recurring costs. Okay, so that'll be part of next time's presentation. Just the plan ahead for once we're fully funded, which is great news. I'm not trying to say it's not great news. It is great news. But once we're fully funded, we have to make sure we're still getting the proper increases each year. And if it's the way they've been doing it for the other districts, that's going to be a problem. But that's where the review of the foundation formula comes in. That formula has not been updated in a dozen or so years, and so they're acknowledging that some work has to be done with that, and that might be the answer to it right here. Another priority is to fully fund the expense-based aids. Remember when Governor Cuomo was around, he always had on his stuff to combine all those, right? Transportation aid, textbook aid, technology stuff, BOCES aid. His idea was always take them all, put them all in one group called expense-based aid or total aid, and then have that be a number and don't worry about it. The way expense-based aid works is as you spend it, you get a certain percentage back, and for us that's a nice percentage. So we always want it to be fully funded, and that's, again, the priority of these groups. Teacher and staff shortages, which we're feeling and other districts are feeling every day. Teachers in the classroom, bus drivers, nurses, whatever it is. And so that's a priority. One of the things they did last year, as you know, is put a waiver on the limit that retirees can make. Right? It's $35,000 right now. For this year, that has been waived. So we have some retirees that were able to come back, still get their pension, and get their full salary, and not limited by that $35,000. So that's where the teacher and staff shortages comes in. I did peek. The governor does have that in there, extending that for 1 more year. So again, it's not in the final budget yet, but it's in hers that she wants to extend it 1 more year. So we'll see how that goes. Tax cap reform. That's another big one. The 2% tax cap has been in existence for a long time now. That was also 11 or 12 years. They're talking about making some changes. One is to include the pilots, right? Payments in lieu of taxes. When businesses come into an area and they get an agreement that they're not going to pay their full taxes, they get a benefit, a break in their taxes for 10, 20, 30 years, whatever the pilot says. That has been hurting districts in the calculation of the tax cap. They're talking about removing that quote-unquote penalty and including them in the growth factor. Did I say all that right now? That will be key. One of the things that we'll do, and I think it did happen to us at one point several years ago. If you see in the papers when people are talking about their tax cap and what rate they're going out, what tax levy increase they're going out at all the other districts, often there are negative tax caps. Even though it's 2%, when all the other things are calculated, again, mainly those pilots, sometimes districts are at negative. I think we were like negative 0.12 or something a few years back when we just went to 0. But they're talking about getting rid of that. Again, the priority of these groups is to do that kind of thing. And the pilot reform will be big. And the last one I just want to talk about is the fund balance. You know, we have a 4% guide that we're supposed to stay under. That's the savings account, right? The unappropriated fund balance that we have to save when the economy goes down, when health insurance goes up, when other kind of unexpected things happen. You have to have a savings account just like you have in your own personal lives and your finances. Districts are limited to that 4%. They're talking about raising that, which will help us, again, going back to the next presentation that we give, that'll help us prepare for the future as we have money now to try to put some away to save for when things aren't as great. There's our tax cap list. Just wanted to you'll see that again as we go through these presentations. But there's the proof of the fiscal responsibility. And here's the last 6 years that I was saying. Right? This is 2, 3, 5, and then 3 zeros. So in 6 years, total of 5%. Right? And given all the things that we've added over that time, we're really, really proud of that. Again, balancing those two differences. So we'll do a budget presentation on the 15th. Again, but it will not be draft 1 yet. Draft 1 will be at the March 1st for budget vote is the 16th. Questions?
Thanks, John.
Okay.
All right, do you want to review the December financials?
Sure. Tonight I have the December treasurer reports included, and all the accounts have been reconciled. During the month of December, our claims auditor reviewed 357 claims, totaling almost $8.4 million. As far as the last few months, the general fund and school lunch fund is still trending the same, where our revenues is up from last year, like Mr. Carmel said, with the revenue with our foundation aid. And then as far as expenses, benefits, and transportation are still trending higher than last year. And our school lunch fund is still right on track as far as last year goes. I did include the federal fund, the special aid fund, in this December reports. All of our final payments came in from last year's grants, and we've received most of the first installments for this year's grants so far. Also, the ARP and the CURSA money, the federal money that was coming in, we've been spending a lot more of that. You can see that on the report. Their expenses are higher than what we brought in for income so far, so I did do a couple of requests for funds, quite a few $1 million to bring back in to offset that. The only other thing I had was we had our internal auditors come 2 weeks ago from Morgan & Company to do a risk assessment, and they'll be back in a couple months to do a couple days to drill down on one of those assessments that they determined. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. All right, motion on the floor for approval of minutes from January 18th, 2023.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Superintendent recommendation, human resources, staff matters, unclassified and classified. Under unclassified, motion on the floor for consent agenda items 1 through 12.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Under classified, motion on the floor for consent agenda items 1 through 5. Second?
That's usually what we do.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Superintendent recommendations, programs. Motion on the floor for consent agenda items 1 through 3.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Superintendent recommendations, business finance. Motion on the floor for consent agenda item 1 as listed.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? District announcements. Our future meetings all will take place at 6 p.m. The next meeting on February 15th will be at School 14, where we will have a budget discussion, followed by our meeting on March 1st, which will be here at the Tri-Middle School. And no good news because Ann is gone. Motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting. No. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're good.
Good job.
Meeting adjourned.